Hi there, it's Cozy Suburban Housewife, or AJ. My nickname's AJ. So I'm on episode 3 of my life, and where I left off last time was after my third hospitalization. It was after I had gone to a party, and I believe something was slipped in my drink, and I was hospitalized, and I met my future mother-in-law, although I didn't know that at the time that she was going to be my mother-in-law. So check out that one if you haven't seen it yet. And so after the third hospitalization, so I was 15 when that happened. And when I got out, I did go back to the Catholic high school for a little while, and everyone was so surprised to see me because I had been out of school for quite a while. And everyone was very nice when I came back to school, but I felt very uncomfortable and I just wanted to disappear into myself. But I didn't go back. That was my sophomore year. And my junior year, I ended up going to a public school. And things got worse from there. I ended up having extreme paranoia. It was really bad. The paranoia was, I had never experienced anything like that before, up until that point. But the paranoia was really bad. I felt like everybody was staring at me, pointing at me, laughing at me, and playing games with me. And it was just really, really bad. And I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I remember the night I went into the hospital again. So I was 17 years old. And that night, I guess I had been doing really, really bad with the illness. And that night, my parents sat down to me and were telling me that they were going to put me in the hospital again. And I didn't want to go to the hospital again. I actually pulled a knife on my dad. I didn't cut him or anything. But my brother Danny talked to me. My brother Danny was there too. It was my mom, my dad, and Danny. And my brother Danny talked me into putting the knife down. And once I put the knife down, I ran out of the house. And I just ran. And I ran to a diner down the. It was quite a bit away. It was, I don't know, it was about a mile away, at least a mile away from us. So I'd been running a while. And from there, I was in this diner, and I think I was probably acting all weird, but this guy started talking to me. He was in his 30s or 40s, and I ended up leaving with him. He was going to take me to the police. And when I was in his car, I noticed a gun, and I just flipped out. And when we were at a stoplight, I got out of the car and I started running and screaming. And I ran to not a gas station, like a service station where they work on a garage where they work on cars, a mechanic shop. And I was freaking out pretty bad. And the guy there, he called the police, and then the police came, and they ended up bringing me back to my parents' house. And then that night, I went to the county hospital. And at the county hospital, I had totally lost it. My parents said I couldn't have cigarettes, and I was a hardcore smoker. And I really flipped out then when they said that I couldn't smoke while I was there. And I was already flipping out anyway, but I flipped out extra when they said that. And I actually went into the bathroom while I was there, and I was bleeding. I was having my period, but I thought I was miscarrying. I thought I was having a miscarriage, and I was screaming, "My baby, my baby!" And it was just my period. I got way worse when it was my period. I had worse psychotic episodes when it was that time of the month. It was really bad. And I mean, I had episodes when it wasn't that time of the month, but when it was that time of the month, I would usually, it was just awful. It was awful. I'd be totally out of my mind and crazy as a loon. And so I was in the bathroom. My parents were still out there. They're trying to admit me into the county hospital. And there was a room that they had me in too. So there was like the desk, and then my parents were on the opposite side of the desk, and I was on, like, I guess it was like the intake side, and there was a bathroom there, and then straight across from the bathroom was the room I was staying in. Well, I was just temporarily. There's like a mat on the ground that I would lay on. I was laying there, and there's a counselor in there, and I thought he was my cousin who had passed away years ago, and I was crying, and I'm like, I thought it was my cousin, and I was crying, and it wasn't, obviously wasn't my cousin, but I thought it was. And I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I was really very scared, extremely scared, and just anyway, I just went back. So they admitted me to county, and I ended up staying at county for 3 weeks. And from county, I went into the state hospital. And in the state hospital, and I was still 17 at this time. And the state hospital, I was in for 3 months at the state hospital. And there was we were supposed to, and I wasn't out at all during that time. I mean, they had like a yard where we played soccer and sports, but otherwise I was living there. And there's actually a boy there that was 17 also, and he had hung himself while he was there, and his name was James. And I remember they brought us all into a room, and they told us about it. And they had said he had schizophrenia. At this time, I thought I had bipolar, and they had me on lithium. I know that was one of the medications they had me on. So it wasn't until quite some time later that I was diagnosed as schizoaffective, and which makes more sense since some of the symptoms I have are definitely like schizophrenia, and but I do also have symptoms of bipolar, and I get the really I get manias a lot. Like for the past 8 months, I've hardly slept at all. I am up all hours of the night. I just can't sleep. And they've adjusted my medications, and it's like my husband says I'm like a guinea pig sometimes with the medications, and sometimes I just do my best to be aware of my thoughts, my thinking, and my feelings, my emotions, and I do try to keep a routine. I'm not always good at it, and especially the bedtime routine. I do better when I stick to a nightly bedtime routine, but the problem is sometimes I'll go to bed at the time I'm supposed to go to bed, and then I'm just wide awake in bed, and then I'm thinking of the past, and it just makes things way worse, and I get like suicidal. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was a bad idea to get on here tonight. Guess I'm kind of tired, but and and it's hard bringing up the past, the things that happened. I just so I was in the state hospital for 3 months, and that boy had committed suicide there. He had hung himself, and I was really upset about that. I'm extremely upset. And then, like, they had a yard, and one day I was sitting out in the yard at the state hospital, and this girl came up to me, and she asked me if I knew how you could get out of there, and I'm like, I had no intention of trying to escape or try to get out of there, but I said, well, I guess you could climb over that fence and get out. Anyway, she had like set me up, because after that we were supposed to go on an outing to a rodeo, and I hadn't been out in over a month at this time, and I really wanted to go to this rodeo, but then they put me on restriction because of that incident, and I threw a fit. I started throwing tables and chairs, and when I was there, when I was on restriction, I was in a room by myself, but there's like a counselor in there watching me, and I would do homework or I would draw. And I remember one cool thing, there was a counselor in there. He drew one of the pictures from my drawing books, and he was really good. He was like really, really good. I remember the picture, it was like a military guy. It was the picture. And I think this guy was actually in the military too, he said, but he was like one of my favorite counselors. He was really cool. He was nice. I don't remember his name. I can vaguely remember what he looks like. But, and they had like they did aerobics while we were in there, and that was fun. They did aerobics, and we played basketball out back, and then they had an area where you can play basketball, and I played basketball a lot, and that was fun. I was actually really into sports growing up. I mean, besides when I was locked up in psychiatric hospitals, like when I was in school, I played volleyball and I played basketball, and in college I was on a volleyball team, and so yeah, I really and even when I was a kid, we were always very active, and we had a basketball hoop in our yard, and I'd play basketball, and we'd play baseball in the streets, and I never really played football with the boys, but my brothers, they would play football. They played all the sports, and they were very athletic. My brothers. My brother Danny wasn't very athletic. He actually played an instrument though. He played the saxophone, and he was in a marching band, which I always thought was really cool. And so yeah, I actually have his saxophone. Sorry, I miss him so much. So I was in the state hospital for 3 months, and then once I got out of the state hospital, and I was on medication at this point, and the only one I totally remember being on was the lithium. I think I might have been on one called Stelazine as well. I know I did go on that. I don't know if I was on it at that point in time, or they put me on it on the next place I went to. So the next place I went to was a facility for adolescents and children. So they were like, it was kind of like a group home type setting, and they had these houses They had these houses like all set up, and there's a courtyard in front of the houses, and one of the houses had younger children, and I went in a house with girls that were like 13 to 17, I believe was the age, or maybe 15 to 17. There were about 4 to 6 of us in this house, girls, and like I know one time I shared a bedroom with one other girl, but there was a partition, there was a wall partition. And another time I was on like a bunk bed, and there was a girl sleeping underneath me on the bunk bed. I was on the top bunk. And we'd eat like breakfast together, and they'd have therapy groups, and they gave me medication, and they had rules, and they had like a thing like levels you can get to, and on certain levels you get certain privileges. You get privileges like when you got to, I don't remember the level it was on, but when you got to like this one level, you were able to leave campus, and they had school there. So I did my senior year at this facility, and then after I got out of there, I ended up getting my GED, because I guess I was shy a few credits from being in the hospital and stuff. So, but I did get my GED, and I did go on to college. I went to college for art education, and what else? So, well, when I was at this place, I had met a boy named Mario, and we actually ran away from the place together. They had school there, and one time, like during school, I asked if I can go to the bathroom. When I went to the bathroom, we decided to meet at a certain spot, and that we met, and then we ran and stayed in a old abandoned building, and I don't know how long we were at this building, but we went to his friend's house that was near this building, and he was also in the program we were in, but he wasn't in there at the time, or he must have gotten out of the program. I don't remember. I don't know his situation, but it was one of Mario's friends, and we went to his apartment, and while we were there, the police came, and they ended up, they wanted to take me back to the facility, and I didn't want to go at all. And so I ended up getting into a fight with the police officer, and the police officer was actually really cool. He had said I had almost kicked him where it counts, and that I was tough. But yeah, so they brought me back to that place, and then I finished off there. I was there for 6 months, so the total time I was locked up, I just say locked up, but in psychiatric facilities, I was in there for 9 months. And when I lost my train of thought. Where'd you go? I can't find you. Where did my thought go? Oh, so yeah, when there was a woman that worked at the facility where I was staying, and she knew a veterinarian at this veterinarian office, and she talked to them, and they ended up they didn't hire me at first. I started volunteering for this at this veterinary office when I got out of there. And after I volunteered for a while, they actually hired me as a vet assistant. And I was a vet assistant for a while, and that was pretty awesome. That was an awesome job. Other than I was a heavy smoker, and that kind of got in the way with my performance on the job, I believe. Looking back, I think it did. I think I would have done better if I never smoked cigarettes, and because I'm working and then I need to go take a break to smoke, so because I'm addicted to cigarettes. But it was fun. It was fun. I gave the dogs and cats their vaccinations, and I clipped their nails, and I cleaned they would go outside to this area. They have a pen, a run, I guess it's called. We take them out there so they can go potty, and I'd have to clean up after they were done in there, and then if they were overnight for surgery, I'd clean up their cages where they had surgery. I'd have to clean them out, and then I'd feed the dogs and cats. And I even cleaned some dogs and cats' teeth, and that was really cool. And I assisted in surgery, and it was pretty awesome. It was a great experience, and I met an awesome girl there, and that trained me, and we're still friends today. We lost touch for many years, but we're back in touch now, and she's a good friend of mine. And so I ended up, when I got out, I started working at a vet hospital, and that was where the guy, when I was 15, came in. He brought his dog in, and I actually examined his dog, and got him set up in the room for the doctor to come in and see him. But that was when he asked me to dinner, and we went out to dinner. It was when I was working at the vet hospital. He had showed up there with his dog. So that was really weird. That was a strange situation. But I'm gonna stop there tonight. So I started working at a vet hospital and trying to get my life back after being hospitalized for 9 months, and I was in a good place at that time. I was doing really well. I really enjoyed working at the vet hospital, and I was getting my life back, and I was starting to feel a little more confident and more sure of myself, and I started having friends again. I started hanging out with some of my friends and going to concerts, and just enjoying life, and it was a good time at that time in my life. And I'm gonna stop there. So have a beautiful night, and I'll see you again soon, and thanks for sticking around and listening to my story. God bless you. I love you. Bye.